Okay, so a little bit about my mom. Um, she was everyone's mom, whether you wanted to be her kid or not. She kind of made you her kid. Everybody in the neighborhood, all of her kids' friends. If you needed a place to stay, to feel safe, to feel loved, to get a warm meal, you could come to the Vidic household, and my mom would take you in and treat you as her own. As if having 8 kids wasn't enough, she just adopted everybody else as her children. And she had a way about her where she just kind of knew, based on the way you walked in the house, she knew what kind of a day you were having and what you needed. And it was really amazing. I referred to her as a warlock for a long time. Um, she just knew. She just knew. She was just incredible, caring and graceful and soft and gentle, easygoing.
Yeah. So I remember meeting your mom when we were younger. Man, I don't even remember. Would have been high school, right?
Yeah,
Probably, yeah, early high school. So I remember coming over and sitting, you had like a little table in your kitchen there, and meeting her. And I recall her giving us food too or something, but we were talking,
always.
and I picked that up right away that she just sort of took on that role for everybody. And I don't know if she had known about any of my sort of previous history. I'm sure you maybe no.
Probably
Well,
not.
okay. Well, I feel like then she could just, pick up as to, kind of what was going on. And I just remember her being very warm and just really kind to all of us. Like I always felt comfortable coming over and being around her. And I had like many friends growing up too, whose moms were like that. My buddy Greg and a couple other friends where I just felt, at home when I would come over, I never felt like I was imposing or anything. And I just felt kind of free to stop by if I was having a hard time. So I definitely got that from your mom. What were some of her interests? What did she like to do? Any sort of hobbies or activities or anything, or things that you used to do with her that you enjoyed?
Um, Mostly, she, I don't know that you would consider it a hobby for her, but she cooked.
Mhm.
She cooked everything. And she was a baker. She worked at a bakery for a long time before she had kids. And she made all of our birthday cakes growing up and made all of the candy for, Easter and Christmas and everything. So definitely baking was a passion of hers, and I baked with her a lot. I didn't cook with her as much, but I loved baking with her. And then she did take on her and my dad, when I was in late grade school. Her and my dad took up stained glass. They went and did classes together and learned how to do it, and they did amazing, really beautiful work. My mom would then, rent out a table at craft shows and sell her pieces. And while my dad was busy making these huge, elaborate pieces, my mom was making like little tiny bugs and ornaments for the tree, just tiny little pieces, because she knew that those would appeal to kids more. And so like kind of everything she did was, you know being a mom, being, for the kids always. It's like bakery is more appealing to kids. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
What were some of like the favorite things that she baked that you enjoyed, or things that you baked with her that you enjoyed
Oh,
making?
well, I can't say I enjoyed it. But she used to make for Thanksgiving every year. She made a chocolate cream pie, and I still make that. I've continued to, and but it's the worst to make. It's labor intensive and frustrating, and one little thing will mess up the whole pie. And so, um, I remember having to stir for her and being like, I don't want to stir, I just want to eat it. But she made that really well. And everybody who was around pretty much knew her poofy white frosting. She always made chocolate cake with what she called poofy white frosting. And still to this day, I feel like there's no frosting like it in the world. Um, and it's like it's not even that good. But it's the sort of thing where like she would make it and it was delicious, and how it was with the cake was really, really good. And it was like a staple
Sure.
for us. Yeah.
Yeah. My mom and I also baked a little bit, and then she had some recipes and my grandma had some recipes, and it was kind of the same thing. It probably wasn't anything that fancy, but it just tasted awesome. I remember the one cake we made was just fantastic, and I don't think it was any more than, like one of those boxed cakes with a couple extra things added to it, but it always turned out amazing. And so I remember making various things with her as well and doing all of that. So that's always nice when you have something in the family, whether it's cooking or baking, where you just remember doing that, and kind of have some of those things passed down to you that you can maybe now share with your family. So
Yeah.
you don't really think about it at the time, but
Yeah. My kids enjoy it too. They bake with me. I try to carry that on with them. And they know, like anytime I'm baking, not anytime, but a lot of times when I'm baking, they're like, "Do you miss your mom?" I'm like, yeah.
wow.
So it's sort of a thing that I do when I'm not quite in the right headspace. It kind of helps me cope a little bit, brings me a little bit of happiness. So
Yeah. It's amazing how perceptive kids are too, that they can pick up on those things.
yeah.
I've had a couple, even like with my tennis kids, I've had a couple moments where I just, I don't know, you just think they're kids and they're not really paying attention to what's going on, and then they surprise you sometimes. So
Yeah. Yeah. They're a lot more intuitive than we give them credit for. That's for sure.
yeah.
And they
Um,
repeat the things you don't want them to repeat.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Is there any other memory or anything that came to mind as you were talking that you want to share? Any like funny childhood stories? Even something like, one time when you got in trouble for something, or just anything that comes to mind.
So I guess the one of the first things that comes to mind, my brother Ray had gotten married, and this was before my mom had any brain injury or anything.
Mhm.
Um, he had gotten married, and he had daisies as his centerpieces, and they were, very pretty. My mom could not keep plants alive, plants, flowers, anything. I mean, she would, put flowers in the yard every year, and that they were fine, but she wasn't good at keeping things alive. Uh, and so she was really excited about these daisies. She's like, I'm going to take these home and I'm going to plant them and I'm going to make sure that they're beautiful. And so, she dug a hole in front of the front yard and, she planted a few of them out there. And they looked great. And she was doing a really, really great job taking care of them. And, she kept saying to my dad, like, Ray, look, the daisies are doing so well. They're doing so well. And the one day, I think it was my brother Ray who had come over, or one of my other brothers, and she's like, "Look at my daisies! Look at my daisies!" And they're like, "Are those the ones from the wedding?" And she's like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Those are fake." And she's like, "No, they're not. No, they're not." And she went and she looked at him. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, they're fake!" And just but she was so proud of herself. She was so happy with her daisies. Like it would have been so funny if they like went through the winter and she was like, "They're still alive." Yeah. So we didn't let her hear the end of that for a while. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of them are pretty convincing, some of those fake plants. I forget where I
Yeah.
was, but I was somewhere too, and we were trying to figure out if it was a real or a fake plant. It happens.
I guess. I don't know how
Um,
many people take them out and try to plant them in the ground, but
yeah.
it's funny either way.
Um, I asked Brandy this, and I'll ask you, and I've talked to actually quite a few people since I did the interview with her, who have mentioned this, but is there anything that you see, um, as you're going about your day, outside or anywhere, that reminds you of your mom? Is there any specific, like for me, um, it is whenever I see butterflies. Uh, Brandy said hummingbirds, and right when she said that, a hummingbird flew up to her window as we were talking in the interview.
I love that.
Um, so is there anything, it doesn't have to be, a living thing necessarily, but is there anything that reminds you of her that you see?
Sure. So yellow butterflies
Okay.
specifically. Um, the night that she passed, there I was like starting to fall into a sleep, and I knew that she probably wasn't going to make it through the night. And as I closed my eyes and I kind of started to drift off into sleep, I like had this, I don't even want to say vision because that sounds like weird, but I just had this image come into my brain, and it was a blue butterfly, which my husband and I, when we had our first miscarriage, we kind of chose blue butterflies as our symbol for the babies that we lost. And so I had this image of this blue butterfly flying upward, and right behind it was a yellow butterfly, and they flew, and then they were kind of out of the picture in my brain. And I woke up and I was like, well, that was really weird. And I tried to go back to sleep and I couldn't. And then I had checked my phone probably, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes later. And my dad had sent me a text message saying that mom had passed. And so I kind of, in that moment, I was like, I wonder if that was like a sign saying that like our babies are showing my mom the way. So yellow butterflies, very specifically. And before my mom passed, I actually asked her, I said, after you pass, what should I look for as a sign from you? And she said red roses. So red roses are a big thing too. Um, and I actually, a couple, I think it was last Mother's Day, Mike got me a red rose bush to put out in the front yard. So those are blooming right now. They're really pretty. They make me very happy. So yeah, those two things.
Nice. Yeah, I know cardinals is a common one, butterflies, so there's a lot of things that you see, which which is nice.
Yeah.
Um, so when she did have the aneurysm, when was that again?
It was January 9th, 2009. Yeah, I just 8 days prior, I had just turned 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how did everything sort of change after that?
Well, so she had chronic headaches for a
Mhm.
long time. Um, and I mean migraines, she would be laying in her bed for hours. And then one day she went to work, and she worked at a flower shop, and she was on the phone, and her boss heard the phone hit the floor, and when he checked on her, she wasn't responsive. So they had an ambulance come and get her. She worked in Westlake at the time, and they took her to St. John West Shore, where they determined that it was a brain aneurysm. So she had to be life flighted from St. John West Shore to University Hospital in Cleveland. Um, and so she survived through, the ambulance ride, through the helicopter ride, and then they did an 11-hour surgery, and she survived through the surgery. And all of this is like unbelievable because I guess a normal aneurysm size is about a quarter of an inch, and hers was just under an inch. So pretty massive.
Yeah.
It had actually ruptured. So it filled her whole skull with blood, pressure in all the different areas. Um, so just the fact that she survived all of that alone was incredible. But then she, she was in the intensive care unit for quite a while at University Hospital. One by one, they, took away different things. I remember one day she moved her finger, just moved her finger. And we were all like, she moved her finger. Like there was like this like huge, exciting moment for everybody. Um, And then, the one day she opened her eyes, and, at first, she didn't know any of her kids. And as you recall, there's 8 of us. So she didn't know any of us. She didn't know her grandkids. She didn't know anybody except my dad. So when she was able to answer like yes or no questions, she was answering all the questions wrong. So we kind of knew, there was brain damage there. And she kind of graduated out of the intensive care unit, did some rehabilitation at Metro. Eventually, she had spent a little bit of time in a nursing home, and then we were able to bring her home. And she did need constant care. They had told us initially, she may never walk again. She may never know who you guys are. She may never do this. She may never do that. And this woman defeated all odds. She did everything. Now I was living at home at the time, and I had made flashcards with people, with pictures, and wrote names on the back. And I made like a big poster board. My sister and we made this poster board of a family tree, who belongs to who, what kids belong to who, and kind of like retaught her who her family was. But she suffered short-term memory loss. So there were days where she was like in high school and talking about all of her high school friends, and I mean people I've never heard of before in my life, talking about her old jobs and things like that, as if she were in those moments. uh, and then some days she didn't know even that. It was very touch and go with the different memories. But the one constant that always remained was my dad. She always knew my dad. I get all like choked up. Loved him so much. Um, he he did a lot for her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you hold on to, I mean, obviously your children and everything, but I feel like when I hear a lot of the stories about people who have, Alzheimer's or any sort of issues, that they tend to remember their current love or first love or whatever, the person closest to them. And it's always kind of, surprising maybe because they don't remember a whole lot else, but it's incredible how they can still remember and recognize those people even over their own kids sometimes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And he, at first, he didn't deal with it well. he kind of uh he kind of took off and just removed himself from
Mhm.
it. It was very hard for him to watch her like that, which I understand, to an extent. So I was home with her a lot, and I had to do a lot with her. And at the time, it was really hard and really frustrating. But I'm very grateful. Like now, I'm very grateful that I had that time with her, because we really did get a lot of quality time. Um, and while it wasn't the same, I was kind of mothering her. So
Yeah.
our roles had reversed. But it was still really great. And she was a very different person. Where before she never swore, she never really raised her voice. She was just very, calm and sweet. And she had a temper afterwards. And it wasn't all the time, but it would come out. You could tell she was frustrated with herself more than anything. And so it would come out. Um, and it's not fun to be around. So it was very difficult, but I mean, like the silly forgetfulness, it was childlike. And so in those moments I kind of had to tell myself, like, okay, when I was a kid and I would have been acting like this, how would she have treated me? what kindness in her heart would she have shown me. And so I developed a lot of patience with her. And, we had a very, very close dynamic. Um, and so I was probably even more than my dad for a lot of it. I was her caretaker, especially in that first, couple years. And it was, it was very hard, but it was a huge privilege, to be able to kind of return that favor to her of what an amazing mother she was to me. I got to take care of her in similar ways, and it was kind of cool, kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a chance to do the same for my mom. But I was much younger when everything happened, but I remember helping to take care of her and just help her around the house and everything. And she went through the same frustration. She didn't show it a lot, but there were moments where I remember her, crying because she was trying to do something. She had trouble eating after her surgery and just moving around the house. And, she eventually lost her eyesight, so we had to help guide her around. So she definitely had moments of frustration. And I can only imagine how hard it was. I was talking with my dad a couple days ago, and I knew this, but I didn't fully know it. But he was like, your mom had such a beautiful smile, and like everyone complimented her, how nice of teeth she had. And I remember that she had had some, artificial teeth when I was younger, and I didn't realize that that had happened only after her first treatment. And I always kind of knew her as having that, but he said no, that only happened after, the surgery and everything. And it made me so angry. Like, I don't know why, but I left there that day just so angry um that she had to like go through this and like my favorite thing about me is my smile. Like I try to take good care of my teeth. I love my teeth. And I was just so angry that like the one thing that she loved about herself had to change because of that. I mean, many things had to change, but it just really stuck with me. And because he was having some dental issues, and that's how we got on the whole topic. But I do remember her smile, and I have so many pictures and everything of her. And it's just something that I always notice when I think of her and when I look at photographs and everything. So
You do have a great smile.
thank you. Yeah. Many years of braces and all that stuff. It wasn't always great, but it was the greatest gift my parents gave me. I'm glad I went through all of that. So she passed away in what year again?
2020.
2020.
Yeah,
Okay.
which was like the worst year to die.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't quite place the date. I've had so many friends with, have lost parents in the past couple of years, but I remember talking to you, several times and you kind of giving me updates on everything. So, what was kind of your final memories, with her, like kind of leading up to the final weeks or the final days?
Well, well, those are difficult. So she, throughout the years that she was alive, with dementia, she would forget that she ate. And
Mhm.
she lost a significant amount of weight. I mean, she was heavier set my whole life, and then all of a sudden she just dwindled away quickly. So ultimately, I think what was on her death certificate was failure to thrive. She wasn't eating, she wasn't drinking. So we ended up getting her into, so she was in a hospice program towards the end, and she was able to get respite care. So she was able to go away for, up to a week, 1 week out of the month. And she was not doing well. She wasn't eating or drinking. She was barely responsive. We had convinced my dad to let us take her to the facility. Now, I had been taking her to and from the facility because it was closer out here by me. So, I always took that time to like hang out with her, and we would jam out to Billy Joel, and we would stop at Starbucks and I'd get her some like fancy little drink, and we would hold hands, and it was great. And then I'd sit in her room with her, and I'd give her a manicure and a pedicure, and we'd have girl time, and it was really nice. But 2020 being what it was, a lot of times there were time restrictions, and you can only have one visitor at a time. Well, the nurses got to know me quite well, so I was always there. And a lot of times they'd see that I was in there and they would just like close the door. I'm like, thanks. So, we got a lot more time than I think we were supposed to have gotten. But, it's like when they're end of life, can you just let them have some time with their family? But, she just, it was very slow, very, very slow and steady. Um, my dad, luckily, my dad had gotten up there and spent the day with her, and she knew who he was. And the nurses were, they turning their heads at the time limit to my dad,
Mhm.
because she wasn't well. And then I got there that night, and I had already talked to all of my siblings and said, listen, we should all be together for mom. When we grew up, we grew up in a very Catholic family, and we would pray a rosary every night together. So I told them we should do that one last time as a family, pray the rosary together over Zoom. I'll call you guys in. We can all do this. And now visiting hours ended at 8, but I didn't get out of work until 8. And again, the nurses, I had, worked
Yeah.
it out with them where I was like, I'm not going to get there till later. You guys got to let me in. Luckily, the one nurse was working and like vouched for me. So I got in, and the one nurse stopped me and she's like, before you go in there, I need you to know she spent the afternoon with your dad, and she was great when he was here, but she gave every ounce of energy to him, and she's not doing well. Ever since he left, her code changed, and I think she's getting ready. So she's like, I just need you to be prepared before you walk in, because like she's not good. So I went in, and sure enough, it was shocking. No, there was no color or anything. Very, very difficult to be in the room with her. It was very strange because as soon as I walked in, there was a vase of red roses and there was no card. And I asked the nurse, I was like, where did the roses come from? And she's like, I have no idea. And I was like, well, if like, could you let me know? Like, I'm just curious, just because like my mom told me to look for red roses, and this is just eerie. Never found out who the roses were from. Red roses just appeared in her room that day, and they weren't from my dad. So anyway, I went in, called all my siblings in. We prayed together prayed the full rosary together. Everybody got to talk to her, so she got to listen to everybody. She couldn't open her eyes at that point. She was having a lot of labored breathing and everything. And after I got off with them, I, sat with her a little bit longer, said my goodbyes, and I told her she did seem, after I got off the phone with everybody, she seemed to really be struggling. Like, yes, physically, but it kind of seemed like she was just like fighting something. And so everybody knows, anytime my mom was in the hospital or wherever, I invaded her space. I would lay next to her in bed. I would like scooch it, make her scooch over, and I'd lay with her and snuggle. So I laid with her for a little bit. And the last thing I said to her before I left was, don't worry about dad. We'll take care of dad. You need to go. And it's just like her whole body just kind of relaxed when I said that. Just like, I think she was worried about leaving him. They had been together, sorry, years. So it's a long time to be with somebody and love somebody and then know that you're going to leave them forever. But as
Hey,
soon as I told her that, um, her whole body just kind of eased,
hmm,
and I left. And it was probably maybe 2 hours later, she passed away.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know I said on the phone, but I'll say it again. Thank you for sharing that. It really means a lot. And I wanted to say real quick to the people that watch this that just a thank you to you because you were one of the inspirations for me doing all of this in the first place. You kept encouraging me to kind of start making videos and to, do some of these interviews, and you've sort of helped me along. Just, even suggesting people that I could talk to and just, pushing me to make time to do this. So I really appreciate that. You've been a really good friend. And without all of you guys kind of encouraging me, I don't know that I would have done something like this. So just want to say that real quick.
You're welcome.
Yes.
But feelings mutual. You're a good friend too. It's I mean it's, we're fine. We're fine, obviously. it's it's hard to have so much grief, and it not everybody understands what you're going through, and so it's nice to have
Yeah.
somebody that can understand the loss and the grief process, and um it's not a fun club. Nobody wants to be a part of this club. It's not a good time. But it definitely makes it easier to get through when there are people that you can talk to, that you can relate to. So I appreciate you. It's been really nice having somebody to share, different situations with. I mean, even like Father's Day is coming up, and I'm sure you're gonna get a phone call. It's gonna be one of those moments that I'm like, I need somebody who understands this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think you're doing a great job. I'm really
Thank
happy
you.
that you're tackling this, and I think it's going to be really helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's been good. I've had some, people that I didn't even know reach out and just had some back and forth messages and things. And I hope I can keep doing it. I was a little bit behind. I had some time off and then things got kind of crazy. So I've been trying to consistently, put out videos and everything, but I got a little bit behind last week. So I'm getting back into it now. But
Well, life's going to happen,
yeah,
and that's okay.
but
Just take time for yourself too.
so ending on a happy note.
Yes,
Is there
please.
anything else that you wanted to share, or even maybe not even related to what we talked about, but just anything that you thought of in the last couple minutes that you
Um,
or
Honestly, like this is the most generic thing I could probably say, but um appreciate the people in your life, in whatever capacity that you have them. Um just appreciate who they are and what they are for you. Because even with my mom, I mean, it was difficult to enjoy her company. It's terrible to say that because she was my mom, but it was difficult. It was very hard. There were a lot of tedious conversations, and the repetitive nature of that relationship was a lot. Um, but I'm very grateful that I had it, and I can't imagine life without that. Like it's shaped me into who I am now. And I don't think that there's no way I would have had the same patience for my own kids if I hadn't had that experience with her. I mean, everything you go through, even the hardest, most frustrating situations are helping form you for who you are. And so it's important to remember to just appreciate what you have. Um, Even in the difficult moments, try to find the beauty in it, and, don't take any of it for granted because it's not going to last forever. These are all just small moments in your timeline, and it doesn't last forever.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think about that every day now, just even with friendships and everything, just the day to day, just appreciating the small moments and the people around you and everything. And I don't know, it's not that I was never I mean I always was aware of it, but I feel more strongly as I'm getting older, just when I'm around people and when I'm doing things, I just take a moment to reflect.
Yeah, you don't want to take the good things for granted, for sure, but even the hard moments, it's easy to wish it away, but then when it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you again. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
Thank you.